What you're saying is you just don't agree with it, that God can allow us to suffer if he compensates us. Like if someone came to my house and tore it up and then gave me a bunch of money, I'd be highly inconvenienced nonetheless to have to fix everything. I'd still be mad even if I was grateful for the money because it's my house, not theirs. But this is God's house. So he's sovereign over it.
I don't see myself as a part of God's house. At best, I would see myself as a visitor within God's house who had no choice but to be in God's house. If I was in my own house and I dragged somebody into my house through no choice of their own and then forced them to undergo some suffering and then threw some money at them and said, I have the right to do this because firstly, this is my house, and secondly, I've compensated for it. So if anything, you should be grateful. I think this would be gross.
Right, because when human beings exhibit that kind of autonomy over other human beings, we call that slavery.
It's funny that, isn't it?
So he's sort of picking up on the point that he's bothered by this idea that you'll suffer, but it'll be for your benefit. And it's like, oh, well, thank you very much. And I think this whole theme ties into the book that you have translated into Hebrew called I Didn't Ask to Be Born. And he's saying there still seems like a bit of an something a bit inherently unfair in the fact that you're going to have to put me through a lot of suffering as a visitor in your house through no choice of my own. And you're saying it'll be great in the end. Do you think there's an inherent unfairness here that we don't really have an opt-out? I think I'm anticipate you're going to say we wouldn't want to opt out had we know if we really understood it. But would love to hear from you what your reaction is to this argument.
It's a little disappointing because that's the kind of conversation you expect from 12-year-olds. The whole conversation. What does it mean? It's okay for God to make you suffer as long as he pays you for it. That's such an absurd concept. That makes absolutely no moral sense at all.
That is the conventional wisdom, even among a lot of religious people. Their answer to suffering will be, don't worry, it's for your benefit. You'll get paid at the end.
Oh. For your benefit is a little different than, I'll give you money at the end, or I'll reward you for suffering.
Why? What's the difference?
Reward me for suffering? That is so disturbed.
Isn't that what for your benefit means?
I hope not. I hope not. For your benefit means that the suffering itself is good. Not I'll pay you for it. That's like sadistic. Let me cause you some pain. I love doing that, but I'll pay you. I'll make you rich and famous. That is really, it's frightening that people could actually think like that. The question is not, can God compensate you for the damage? The question is, God causes damage? Isn't that the real issue? A God who causes damage?
God causes pain, perhaps. Constructive pain.
What is constructive pain?
Suffering that will have a beneficial outcome. It's sort of what he's saying. It's definitely what is. I know a lot of people. They have an instinctive dislike of this concept of it's for your benefit. You know, it feels inherently unfair, and it sounds like, okay, you're saying God doesn't destroy, so that means that even the suffering you're going through is going to be is good in and of itself, but it's still painful, and it still happens to us without us choosing, perhaps.
For sure. But if I were to ask, what gives God the right to cause me pain? And you say, oh, he'll pay you. You're not answering the question.
Exactly.
What would be the purpose of causing pain and then paying me for it? It's almost like you're causing pain, you know you're wrong, and that's why you want to make up for it by paying me. That doesn't make it right. So is this the way we view life? God created you with a plan. He'll make you suffer, but he'll pay you in the end. You interested? No. And what kind of a God are you talking about? So before you get to the reward of suffering, the question is, why does suffering exist in the first place? That you have to compensate me for it. And nobody answers that question. Well, there is suffering. Why? It'll be good in the end. You're not answering the question. You're born in sin, but he'll save you. Why was I born in sin? Well, you were all born in sin. Okay. You're not starting at the beginning. How did we get here? How did we get to the pain? How did we get to the sin? Nobody knows. And it doesn't leave God looking very good. The only wisdom that makes any sense at all, God created the worst possible world in order that we fix it and make it the greatest of all worlds. So that in the end, there is no existence that is not holy. Even the evil has become holy. Now, making an unholy world holy is a difficult task and can be painful because it's a very unholy world. So it's literally like going to war. If you go to war, there's going to be some pain, there's going to be some loss, there's going to be some tragedy. Is it worth it? There's a question. Is it a privilege to serve your country, including the pain? Will you be rewarded later? Not compensated for your pain. You'll be rewarded by victory. The world will become what God wants it to be. That's victory, not compensation. So why is there pain? Why is there pain? Because lifting a heavy weight is painful. Cleaning up an ugly mess is distasteful. So we're not in pain for no reason and need to be compensated. It's an arduous, sometimes dangerous mission. All we really want is to succeed at the mission, not be compensated. Soldiers don't go to war to get a medal. They go to war to win the war. We're at war with unholiness, and we need to win.
And what if his chip on his shoulder that he didn't choose it, that it's forced upon him?
Yeah. Are we talking about the mission or life itself? We didn't ask to be born.
Both. On both fronts. Because it's funny you said this is your answer, because I actually was going to show you another clip of his later on, perhaps on another segment, where he says, there's a religious person speaking that says, wouldn't you rather, there's a process, you're saying you demand perfection now in existence, whereas we're saying that God takes us on a journey to perfection where we partner with him. And he said, God can do anything basically. Why does it have to be that the painful way? Just don't get it.
It's not that it has to be the painful way. It has to be the natural way. And until we fix this world, nature involves pain. It's not punishment. It's not suffering. It's a painful task because the world is painful. The world causes pain. Even the animal world, it's a nasty world. Dog eat dog. That's nature. And if you're going to fix it, you're exposing yourself to it. So you're going to feel pain. You're going to feel how nasty nature can be.
But why does it have to be that we have to fix it? Why can't it be that we're just in the Garden of Eden and it's all great and there's no issues? Is it because really there'd be no relationship, there'd be no us, because we are formed through our choices, and the whole point is really...
It's like, why does Israel fight a war against its enemies? Just build a huge wall around yourself and never leave. And stay safe in your little environment. That's not fixing anything. To fix nature, you got to engage it.
But why that God created nature? Why have we got to be fixing things that He made broken?
Why does God want evil turned into good?
And even before that, He created evil in the first place. So why did what's the whole point of all this? Basically, this whole process this painful process.
That is like the most meaningful question in all of existence.
Right.
That gets right to the heart of everything. Why does God create a world to have it fixed? It's a very good question. It's the question nobody wants to deal with. And that's sad, because if we don't have an answer to that, you're building everything else on air. God wants oneness. God is one. This duality of good and evil, holy and unholy, goes against the grain of oneness. So anything that can potentially create division, separation, conflict, needs to be brought to the surface and fixed. So you say, yeah, God could just never bother creating the evil. But if the possibility of evil exists as a challenge or an exception to holiness, that's not acceptable. So God brings it out. He actualizes the evil and wants it turned into goodness, so that there is a total oneness. Even evil is godly.
Will evil be transformed and no longer be called evil?
Yes. Yes. But the power of evil, that energy turned into goodness, enhances the goodness greatly. It's like nobody does a good deed with the same passion as a sinner sins. Right?
Right.
You ask a sinner, why did you do that sin? He says, I had to. I had to. Ask somebody why he gives charity. He doesn't say, I just had to. You don't find that kind of passion.
Yeah. It's because they called me 10 times and I want them to stop bothering me.
Right. So can you imagine a world where people are good with the passion of a sinner?
That would be very good.
Oh yeah, good on steroids.
Do you know what? Can you help us understand why God has this desire for oneness? What's that from?
No, that's like asking why do fish have to swim in water.
Wow.
So now the question still is, well, what if I didn't volunteer for this job? Why would it be enjoyable for me to do this?
Right.
And the answer can't be, oh, I'll pay you. It's like in the end, the Egyptians paid the Jews for their slavery. We left Egypt with a great wealth. But if you were to ask someone, would you like to be slaves for 210 years and get paid? No. No, that's not a good answer. The fact that God turns to us and says, I need you for this job, that's all the reward we need. I can serve you. That is the only justification for our existence in the first place. But people think otherwise. People think, look, I exist, and then God drags me into this mess and drafts me into this mission, which I never agreed to. Your entire existence is this need that God has. So it's not like you had your own life and then God interfered. You don't have your own life. That's such a mistaken notion.
Yeah.
Here I was doing fine, and then God has to come along and mess everything up.
Yeah. I suspect this part of the equation is not something that this person that was speaking is familiar with, and it wasn't something I was familiar with until I spoke to you, which is this notion that we got it the wrong way around. It's not that, as you say, we're needy. No, we're created out of a need, and we can affect him. We really can serve him, and I think it's quite a Christian notion. I'm sure he'll have a Western Christian notion that, we're just weak, vulnerable, needy subjects, and if we're a good boy, then we'll get to heaven.
And I'm surprised people don't ask the question. You're in trouble. God is here to help. How did I get into trouble? Why am I in trouble?
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah. I think he is sort of saying that indirectly, and I've heard him say it on other occasions. But you're right; it's the obvious question. And presumably, as a created being, if we're created for a particular purpose, that will mean that if we're fulfilling that purpose, that will give us the greatest satisfaction, because that will touch the very essence of our being.
Which gets us back to, that's the truth. There's nothing better than the truth.